Shalom, everyone. Today we are back once again to do practice together of Hebrew, biblical Hebrew. So today we will start off with the alphabet. Now, we were going through the alphabet and we did 2 letters each, and we went through the entire alphabet in the regular traditional Hebrew script that people are familiar with. However, the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet, we have not gone through more meticulously. So that's what we're going to be doing today in the beginning. And then we'll see where we go from there. So I'm going to first start off by sharing my screen. So we've got the square Hebrew, which is the traditional Hebrew that we're familiar with. In this first column. Then you got the Paleo-Hebrew in the second column. So as you can see, the whole alphabet's right here, all the way down. And of course, the square Hebrew has five letters which have final forms. So if it's at the end of a word, it takes a different form. Versus if it's in the beginning of a word or in the middle of a word, it'll have this form. Yeah, but if it's at the end, we'll have this second form. So, like I said, the first column is the square Hebrew. That is the traditional Hebrew Jews are familiar with. But the ancient Hebrew that all Hebrew was written in originally is Paleo-Hebrew. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. So the first 2 letters, we've got A and B, or Aleph and Bet, corresponds to the English letters of the alphabet A and B. They originate from the Hebrew letter Aleph and the Hebrew letter Bet through the Greek alphabet, whose the first 2 letters in the Greek alphabet are Alpha and Beta, clearly derived from the Hebrew names. So let's get our Paleo A and B. So maybe we'll have to do it 18. Let's try this. Hold on. All right. There we go. So we've got the first 2 letters. So let's put it down here. So A, this is Aleph. Aleph. Kind of looks like an ox head. And then this is Bet, the letter B. And it's the same rules of pronunciation as this script. So the rules for the pronunciation are the sound of A as in apple, and a KH sound like a ch, like the CH in Bach. Okay. And then the second letter is Bet, so it's B as in banana and boy, and then it also can have the sound of V as in vine, Victor, yeah. So those are the first 2 letters, okay? Since we've gone through the letters before, we're not going to spend too much time on the letters today. Each week, we're just going to be briefly reviewing the letters, and then we're going to dive into some of the other content. Now, this is what we talked about last time, the noun forms, where I also reconstructed the original case endings based on Akkadian for the nouns. But if you find this irrelevant and not necessary to know, you can skip this original Hebrew and focus on these first two columns, because these first two columns are key for the biblical Hebrew in particular. So in parentheses shows what original biblical Hebrew was, and that was a tav for the feminine marker. That's why it's in parentheses right here. The original Hebrew forms are in these final columns, but the original biblical Hebrew forms is basically in the time of David. You would have seen Hebrew writers use tav a lot rather than hey. Although even in the time of David, they were using hey. They were using both hey and tav. Using both occurs in Arabic in much greater frequency than you would see in Hebrew. So I would suggest that that's what it was originally in the time of the judges, the Canaanites, when the Israelites were in the land of Israel, surrounded by the Canaanites. They started copying the forms of the Canaanites. So they started using hey instead of tav, but they were using both in the beginning, and then over time they started using tav less and less until hey completely replaced tav. That's the forms for biblical Hebrew. And remember, this dash simply says that it's the same forms in all cases, for all cases. So this would be pronounced, oh, I probably should write it in for you guys. Okay, so Malik. And this would be Malka. And the original is Malkith. And down here, we've got Malakim. Malakim. And in parentheses, the original Malekin with an N. And for the feminine, we have Malekthim. Oh, this is too oh wait, so this is, let's see, 12 font. Okay, so let's change the font size. There we go. All right. Now hold on a second. See, I have the ah down there with a O, so maybe I should be consistent and write it like that. Let's see here. Oh, I guess I'll do that. Okay. Hmm. All right, and then we have the plural form, which is malakim. It's the same as the dual form. And the feminine is malekut. Then the form here would be, I believe it would be pronounced mal, malke. And let's see, malkith. This form is malki. Malfi. And oops, okay, malki and malkuth. Okay, so we have so these are the forms and how they are pronounced. This is for adjectives, which we discussed last time. This is originally Hebrew for adjectives. In biblical Hebrew, adjectives are written the same as regular nouns. So these forms, these first two columns, will be the original for adjectives. Not the original, but the biblical form. These first two columns, same as regular nouns, but in the original Hebrew, there was different forms for the plural for adjectives. Now, we have the verb, which we've discussed a couple weeks ago, where there's the this is weird. We're missing a column of verbs. I'm very confident that we had this. I don't understand. I don't get it. Where? That's weird. See, so it has the causative imperfect and the causative perfect. And it has the passives, but the regular form is not there. That's weird. I'm really at a loss of why that chart is not here. Hold on a second. Where is that chart? Because I know I did this before. Because we need all the verb forms in that file. So just quickly see if we got it in one of these files. Well, I guess this is it. I don't remember using this file last time, so what I'll probably do is just double check the video that I did, because we did a video recording of this in like a few weeks ago. Let's see what we got here. So let me share that screen again. So I totally at a loss of why there's that whole column missing. Let's see. Imperative, participle, whoops, I copied more than one. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's also the reflexive. I don't understand why I did not copy these in my file the other time. It's really weird. So these are reflexive forms. And wait a minute, that's the same form. What's going on here? Wait. All right, let me try to do this again. Hold on. Okay. Again, totally at a loss of how I messed it up this badly, and by missing the chart for the regular forms. I don't get it. Let's see what we got here. So how do we get this up here? Let's see what we can do. No, come on. See, this will not let me format it. I want to backspace it, but it's not letting me backspace. I guess it requires a space between the charts for some reason. But okay, I think I, oh man. No, see, it's so annoying. I don't want it to do this. All right, let's see what we can do here. I made it too font. Let's try 5 font. Then we'll do the same thing here. Try it 5 font. There we go. So we have the perfect forms and we have the imperfect forms. Now, let's see here. The original form for the feminine third person was same as the masculine, I think. Let me double check this. Okay, so we've got the verbs. Let's see, where's the verbs? Yeah, so third person singular is the same for both masculine and feminine. For the preterite in Akkadian, but this corresponds to the imperfect in biblical Hebrew. I'm gonna just double check the forms for a sec. Comparing them with my chart just to make sure we've got the right forms. The reason I'm not sharing my screen at the moment is just because we're trying to look at both windows at the same time. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Let's see what we got here. One sec, I'll show the screen in a second. Let's see what we got here. Okay. See, I feel like I did this, and it's not in this particular one, but I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna double check the previous weeks. I wonder if maybe when my computer got turned off, file might have gotten corrupted or something. I don't know. I'll check. Okay, so I'll share the screen briefly. So we're going to look right here for, if it's in parentheses, that's the original form, according to Acadian. So we have imperfect and perfect forms for the verbs. We have masculine and feminine for each of the forms. Now, so imperfect, I'll explain what an imperfect verb is. So like, the best way to explain it is if we say, I love, let's say, okay? I loved versus I love.
You love me?
Yeah. So loved is perfect and love is imperfect. So in Hebrew, the way it works is you can say I loved in the past, or I loved in the present, or I loved in the future. And then likewise, you can say I love in the past, or I love in the present, or I love in the future. So the way this was going to work, the way this would work in Hebrew is you're basically like, let me see of the best translation here. Okay, so for love, it's I did love, I do love, I will love. See how I did love is it's in the past. I do love, it's in the present. And I will love, it's in the future. And likewise, for loved, I had loved, or I had loved, I have loved, I will have loved. Okay, so those are the two forms we have for perfect and imperfect, and that's the way it works. So whenever you see in Hebrew the imperfect, it means I love. But context is what's going to tell you, does it mean I did love, or does it mean I do love, or does it mean I will love? Context will tell you that. Likewise, in Hebrew, if you see the perfect, it's I loved. But is it I had loved, or I have loved, or I will have loved? Context is what tells you which is which. So for in the beginning of Genesis chapter 1, you have, in the beginning, God created. That is a perfect tense. In the beginning, God created. So perfect, and it's clearly past tense, because when did He create? He created in the past. So God had created. God had created. So in the beginning, God had created the heavens and the earth. Okay, and then what it says is, now they translate it as, and God said, let there be light. Okay, but the key point is, and God said. It actually says, and God says, that's because it's imperfect. But context is telling you that it was in the past, right? So, and God did say, because it was in the past, so he did say. And God did say. But so in a better translation, you would see, and God did say. You wouldn't see, and God said, because said implies it's past tense, whereas in the Hebrew, it conveys past tense by context. It gives you tense based on whether it's perfect or imperfect. And like I said, say is imperfect and said is perfect. Basically, the past tense form of verbs is in English is the perfect form, not the spelling of but the concept. And then the present tense is the imperfect form. So you basically use the present tense to mean imperfect, and you use the past tense to mean perfect, and you use the past tense perfect to mean the perfect action, whether it be past, present, or future. And you use the present or the imperfect to refer to anything in the past, present, or future that is in an imperfect state. So let's try to distinguish between the two types of forms here. Let's see, maybe I'll save this for you guys in the file so you can tell the difference. Okay, let's see. I loved equals depending on context, I loved equals let's see, depending on context, I love equals so let's try to distinguish between what's perfect and what is imperfect. So if you were to say, let's see, I said versus I say. So if you're saying, if you're talking about the past, you're saying I did say versus I had said. So if you're narrating the past and you're saying to someone, and then I had said to them, so you're like, you're basically, you're narrating it. And then I had said, whereas the other way is I did say. So I did say that whatever you said. Let's see, how do I explain? It's just the best way to explain it is complete versus incomplete. So let's say, let's say you want to convey to someone that you had a conversation with them, but let's see, like, so like talking, if you're having a conversation, talking is like, it's flowing, it's going back and forth. There's no final point necessarily until you decide to end the conversation. It just kind of just keeps going. The way you're going about the communication, whereas perfect, it's a complete action. It's a final action. So it's kind of like just you said something. You said something. It's like it's a single moment. Whereas incomplete is talking about something. It's like an ongoing thing, conversing about something. So yeah, that might be the best way to like saying in a moment versus conversing would be the distinction. Saying in a moment versus conversing. Okay, and then if you had like let's say sleep. So, all right, let's say eat. Okay, so if you eat something, it's like you took it in and you finished eating it. Like so that would be perfect, where you consume it. Whereas imperfect would be like the process of eating. You're eating it. So like in the past, you were eating something. You were in the process of eating. You hadn't finished it yet in the past. You were in an ongoing process of eating. Versus if you had said to someone, "Oh yeah, I ate that." You're saying you did it all. You completed the eating in the past. Where versus what I was saying earlier, you were doing an ongoing eating. So it might also help to convey it in terms of ing, like the participles. So like going. So he was going to the store versus he went to the store. So the one is he did it, it's complete. In the past, he went to the store versus he was going to the store. And he slept versus he was sleeping. He was in the process of doing it. He cried versus he was crying. The ongoing process. However, I'm not sure I would translate it this way due to the fact that Hebrew also has participles. So this is participle form. Although to be fair, these are participles in their form as well. So the problem is English isn't 100% Hebrew in terms of the forms used for verbs. So it seems like we do have to use the participle in English to cover different forms. So let's see, how would we render participles in a way that's distinct? Maybe I would just, so let's see. So let's try to apply this to okay, so God said, or Elohim said. It was actually God says, but in the context, it's God did say. Let's compare it to, comparing it to God was saying. And God was saying, let there be light. That's one way we could render it. So what's interesting is participle, like different forms, even though it might not say it in the Hebrew, different forms grammatically can have overlap in meaning. So the participle and the past tense can have the same meaning essentially, even though you're saying it in different ways. But so I'm not sure the best way to translate it for my Bible project, but just for the sake of explaining the distinction, the whole point of he cried versus he was crying. He said versus he was saying, the ongoing process. But what I think what I will try my best to stick to these forms right here. So let's see. Like I said earlier, in the beginning, God did create. No, I'm sorry. God had created. God had created the heavens and the earth. That doesn't sound bad. And like I said, and God did say, Those sound okay. So we'll stick with that for now for what I would do for the Bible project. But yeah, so these are the forms you have. So you'll notice that there's some forms in parentheses. I want to have you guys ignore imperative for now and participle because we haven't covered that in our actual lesson yet. But for these ones, first person, second person, and third person, you'll notice that there's forms in parentheses, and the parentheses are the old forms that are found in Akkadian. So you have second person plural. The feminine in biblical Hebrew has a nun hey at the end, but in Akkadian it simply has the same form as the masculine. There's no difference between the masculine form and the feminine form. And then likewise, you have I think this is spelled incorrectly right here. I think it's also a tav, but I'd have to double check that one. But so for the third person singular, the feminine in biblical Hebrew is spelled with a tav, but the original form as indicated in Akkadian is the same as the masculine form. Let me quickly double check the form in Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, because I don't want to have the wrong form in our file. We will check the Hebrew for Christians form. See what we got here. Yeah, so for some reason, I had it with a yod, even though it is tav, according to the diagrams. Okay, so let's correct that. All right, so third person feminine plural is the same form in biblical Hebrew as the second person plural for feminine. But in original Akkadian, it did not have the nun hey at the end, nor did it have tav at the beginning. It simply had the same form as the masculine for the plural. Now, for the first person, for perfect, we have a tav yod in biblical Hebrew, but in Akkadian, instead of a tav yod, it's a kaf wa. And if you look at the pronouns, the kaf reading actually seems to be the original reading. Like if you look at the pronouns, I'll show you in a sec. So new at the end is first person plural. Then second person singular has both forms spelled the same I actually think, if I remember correctly, the masculine has a hey at the end. Let me double check that. Sometimes when I'm making the diagrams or whatever, you know, when people make diagrams, it's easy to accidentally leave off a correct spelling. So whenever we catch that, it's important to make that change. Let's see what we got here. It's spelled the same in Biblical Hebrew. It just has the a different vowel marking. Let me check the imperfect again. I could have sworn, oh yeah, that's for the pronoun again. I keep confusing it with the pronoun, okay. But it appears to be the case that the original form had a hey at the end for the masculine. So let's do this. And then we have the un form originally and the een form, but in Biblical Hebrew it's tham and thin. And right here, Biblical Hebrew is malka or malika. Whereas the original form was malaketh. Okay. So let's just take a look at the pronouns for a second. So see right here, the pronoun K, right? K. And then, let me go back for a second. Okay. So we take a look. What's the final form? Ti, right? But in Akkadian, it's Ku or Ki. Let's do Ki. Now we take a look. So, okay, new is we, and ta and t, or ta and t, and thun and theme, or thon and thin, okay? And the u ending, and there's no ending here, and then there's a tav ending. So now we go to the pronouns, and we have the new ending for we have the ending. The original form here probably had an e at the end, like a yod. So let's probably put that. Whoops. Okay, and then see, the original form was probably UN, because that's the form it is in Akkadian, and IN, that's the form it is in Akkadian. And then we have a wa versus yod, and again, a wa versus yod. Now, we have you can see the form yod and the masculine and feminine ending are the exception to this, where their forms don't correspond with the pronoun but yeah, so now let's take a look at now it won't let me. I want to okay, there we go. So there's causative and passive forms. Causative means you cause someone to do something. So I love means I'm the one doing it. I love someone. But I caused someone to love means I'm not the one doing the loving. I'm making someone else do it. Or let's say die. I died means I'm the one who's dying. But if I do I caused someone else to die, means I made someone die. So in Hebrew, you can have verb forms where you're making others do something. So like God made us exist. We exist. So if you were to say we exist, that's the regular form. But if you say God exists, that means God exists, not that God made us to exist. But if you want to say God made us to exist, you use the causative form. You could also use, you could say God created us, because then that verb, we're the object of that verb. God created. What did he create? Us. So God created us. But we didn't create. But if God made us create, that means God caused us to do the creating. So God causes a man and wife to create every time that they reproduce and have children. It's God causing them to have offspring. So God enables them to do it directly. So that's the causative form. But it's not just God that can do that. Anybody can do a causative meaning to someone else. So, like so if you said I broke up with someone versus I caused them to break up with someone. Maybe you had an affair with them, or maybe you pressured them to end the relationship, or you are a parent, and the father has the right, according to the Bible, to deny his daughter a spouse when she brings him to her father. On the day that she brings him to him, the father must reject him. If he doesn't reject him, then she's allowed to marry him. So the father can cause them to break up by saying no, and therefore he causes them. And all these different examples that I mentioned where you can cause someone to break up with someone else. You can meddle in their relationship, or you can help them catch the partner cheating on them, so you cause them to break up because you were a primary instigating factor in what led to that action being done by someone else. And in Hebrew, you have a way of saying that. You simply use that causative form. So the beginning of words, beginning of verbs, to signify it's a causative, you simply add, most of the time you add the hey prefix. And you got aleph sometimes, and noon sometimes, and yod sometimes for the causative form, and mem as well. If it's a participle, excuse me, if it's a participle, you add mem as a prefix for causative. And for causative, there's imperfect and perfect, and there's masculine and feminine. And then for passive, it's someone did something to you. So it's one thing to okay. So using the breaking up example, you can break up with someone, or you can cause someone else to break up with someone, or you can someone can break up with you, or you can get broken up. So in Hebrew, you can use yourself as the object, or you can make yourself the subject in a passive verb form. So the passive verb form has a noon prefix. And the passive form is like using the love example again. Okay, so oops, that's tiny. Let's change that to 20. No, to 10. No, 12. Okay, so I loved her. No, let's just say no. I love my parents. Oh, there we go. Right. So who's the one doing the loving? Me. I am loving. Who am I loving? The object is parents. So I subject, love, verb, my parents, object. Okay, so I love my parents. Then we have the causative, causative form. So I caused my parents to love me. So I, subject, caused, causative, my parents, object, to love me, verb. So it's like you're transferring the subject to the object. In other words, you're saying, I caused, and then my parents to love me. So it's basically like you have So in the first, it basically gets broken into two. I caused my parents. So it's subject, verb, object, and then it gets transferred to become the subject. So my parents are the subject, and their love is their verb, and me is the object. So it ultimately through causative, I'm the primary instigator. So I'm the one that's the verb is associated with. But it's like a dual function. It applies to both the parents and me. The cause part applies to me, and what the parents are being caused to do applies to the parents. Okay, and finally we have well, let's see. Okay, my parents loved me. Okay, so my parents now are the subject. Subject, loved, verb, and me, object. That takes the same form as I, right, let's say love me. So I love my parents, subject, verb, object. My parents love me, subject, verb, object. It's the same, it's just in reverse. So it's a different subject. But if you want the same subject, but to convey the same thing, you would say, I got loved by my parents. So who's the one who's the subject? The subject is I. So the subject is I, and then what's the verb? The verb is got loved, which is a passive. And then and the object is my parents. So that's kind of basically the way passive and causative works. And you also have reflexive form, and reflexive is basically causative towards oneself. You basically cause yourself to do something. So, oops. So I love myself. You're basically, I caused myself to love. Okay? It's reflexive in that sense. Instead of causing someone else to do something, you're causing yourself to do it. So, but instead of saying cause, it'd probably be better if you just said made. So like let's say you wanted to convey that you weren't in the mood to do something. Like let's say you do a presentation. I didn't want to do the presentation. I didn't want to do it, but I made myself do the presentation. Okay, so that's a reflexive verb form. You're basically, the verb is I did the presentation, but instead it's a reflexive. So I made myself do. So made myself is the reflexive part, and do is the verb. So it's basically how reflexive verbs work. But yeah, so, and of course, you see how I had the parentheses here? I didn't add the parentheses for these ones yet, so I have to do that as well. Also, I got to double check for Acadian to see if Acadian had the same passives and causative forms. That's something I haven't really checked fully yet. So we'll see what Acadian reveals. Likewise with reflexive. Actually, we'll probably look at that now. We can probably look at that now. Let me, hold on. All right. Let's see what we got here. Let's check out this Acadian stuff. Okay. All right. So we have these forms right here. Imperative, stative, it corresponds with the perfect form in Biblical Hebrew. And what they call the preterite corresponds with imperfect. But notice in Akkadian, the preterite, perfect, and present all essentially take the same form, the imperfect form. So just like I said, it can be past, present, or future. In the same way, we see that for Akkadian. Now let's see what we got here. So there's something called a G stem, a D stem, an S stem, and an N stem. So G stem, I think, is the normal form. Yeah, I'm not sure about these. I have to do more research on these different forms in Akkadian. So here, this is an interesting one. So basically, Arabic has different stems, and so Akkadian corresponds with some of the Arabic stems. So you have the regular verb, that's stem 1. Stem 2 it indicates the intensive form. So S at the beginning signifies causative. Okay, so in Biblical Hebrew, it's a hey. In Akkadian, it's a shin. So let me just go back there. So for causative, we got hey, right? But in original Hebrew, it would have been a shin for that. We'll keep that in mind. I'll have to mark that in the future. Then we have passive is the noon prefix. That's what I showed you guys. So the noon prefix, so it's the same as in Biblical Hebrew. So notice the Hebrew, like it says Arabic stem 1 and Hebrew pa'al. So it's the Hebrew pa'al form. Arabic stem 2 is the Hebrew pa'el form. Arabic stem 4 is the Hebrew hefil form. Now notice it skipped Arabic stem 3 for some reason. And likewise, it's skipping Arabic stem 5 and 6. Oh wait, no, 5 is down here. For some reason, they put 5 down here. Okay, but so 5, but they skipped 6, and then they skipped 9 for the Arabic stems. I'll have to double check those as well. But we have reciprocal or reflexive. It has the tav marker. Arabic has the an I at the beginning and a T in after the second or after the first letter. And then Aramaic has basically Hebrew has hey and tav, and Aramaic seems to have the same thing. Arabic seems to have a hey first and then the letter and then the letter tav. But Akkadian has it just as the second has it after the first letter. See, intensive reflexive. Okay, this is what the Hebrew, they say the Hebrew corresponds with. Okay. Reflexive causative. Okay, apparently there's like multiple different types of reflexives. There's just regular reflexive, and then intensive reflexive and causative reflexive. Then there's reflexive passive. So these are all confusing forms. You can see why it was much more complicated, and over time, speakers of Hebrew decided to simplify it to make it easier, just like we did in English. English speakers made English much easier to communicate with by simplifying the rules. The same happens for all languages over time. The language gets simpler in the rules. But okay, so I'll do some quick review for vocabulary, and then we're going to end it tonight. So numerals, we have ahid, which is 1, and that's the masculine form. Ahit or adith is the feminine version of 1. And then the original form of 1 was ashtin for masculine and ashtinth for the feminine. Number 2 is chin, originally chanin for masculine, and for feminine, chinth, originally chanith. Number 3, the feminine, chalish. And then number 3, masculine, is chalcha, originally chalcheth. 4 for feminine is arba, and masculine 4 is arbogeth, originally arbogeth. 5 feminine, hamish, masculine hamcha, originally hamcha. And again, the words are spelled right here on the left 2 columns. Then chich, originally chadish, that's feminine for 6. And then chicha, originally chadchith, 6 for masculine. 7 feminine is chaba, and so that was feminine. And masculine 7 is chabga, and originally chabga. 8 chamna, feminine, and masculine 8 chamna, originally chamna. 9 feminine, dasha. 9 masculine, Dadga, originally Dachka, and originally Dachka. 10 feminine is Usher, and the masculine 10, Ashra, originally Ashra. 100, Macha, originally Macha. 1000, Aleph, originally Lamim. 10,000, Ravla. And then the pronouns, Anaki, or Anki, originally. And then Annie also means I. Aninu, we, and the later form Anu is we. Antha is you, singular masculine. Anth, originally Anthi, is singular you, feminine. And anthem, originally anthon, plural you, masculine. And anthem, plural you, feminine. And ua, originally shua, is he. And aya, originally chia, she. M, originally cha, it's they, masculine. And N, originally chen, is they, feminine. Roles for people. We have Av, originally Aviv, father. Am, originally Amim, mother. Ben, originally Banin, son. And Bint, originally Banith, daughter. Ah, originally Ahid, brother. And Ahath, originally Ahith, sister. And Alim, young man. And Ulma, originally Ulmeth, young woman. Malik, king, originally meant prince. And Malka, originally Malkith, queen, originally meant princess. And Aish, man. Acha, Achet is originally Acheth, it's woman. And for animals, Dav, originally Daviv, air. Zachiv, wolf. Yana, originally Yanith. Dove, Rachel. You, Namla, originally Namlith, ant. Dabra, originally Dabrith. Bee, Gamel, means camel. Bachur means oxen. And for nature, we have Neher, river, and Im, sea, originally is Imim, and Miyim, water, Arish, land, Shachil, shoal, Abin, stone, Chamish, sun, Hour, light, originally Arir, Napish, soul, Rawa, originally Rachiv, spirit and wind. Eid, originally Edid, hand. Kaf, originally Kolpif, palm. And Emin is right hand. And think that's it. And the foreign word, akil, means big house, and it's translated as temple. But yeah, so that's a refresher of the vocabulary. We'll be adding some more vocabulary soon, and I'll try to add more grammar concepts as we go forward. You guys have any questions before we end? Any thoughts you think you want to talk about? Hope you guys enjoyed the review.
Are you still on the YouTube? Oh, you are. Oops. Okay.
Yes, I'm just waiting to see. Did you guys have any final questions?
Not while you're on that.
Okay. So we'll be coming on Thursday, this Thursday, to do the next lesson. It's going to be in verbs, some more stuff about verbs, and then we'll just keep going, and hopefully we'll start getting fluent in Hebrew. It's going to take some time, but we got to keep practicing. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you Thursday.